Hey everyone, this is Ben from T3, and I'm here bringing you Game 6 of the San Rafael Regionals in Northern California. And just to give everyone an update of where we are here, this is, at this point, both me and my opponent in this game have 14 prestige. Personally, I have 1 corp loss and 2 runner losses, so doing pretty well, and I can clinch a spot in top 16 in that cut if I can win out, and maybe even get in if I don't do that, but we'll see. And on the left you can see that my opponent's playing Exile and I am playing NBN, The World Is Yours. And this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, he's playing Exile. Two, he's playing Exile and doing extremely well with them. Very rarely do you see a deck like Exile or any one of those kind of off runner decks ending up so well in the tournament with so many prestige. And my opponent here also is from my area, or at least closer to my area than anybody else had been, and I had played him before in like Store Champs and the Plugged In Tour and things like that. He's being from Fresno, California. And both of our opens are pretty standard. Ice gets some money. I'm sure you've seen that a lot from me so far. And he draws a couple and then sure gambles and just daily casts. So trying to establish that economy as quickly as possible. And it kind of signals to me that he's going to try and build, or at least he has a lot of pieces that he's looking for. Because you don't usually see runners drawing twice in their opening hand. So maybe he just didn't get something he needed, but he didn't even try to pressure my centrals or make me res anything.
That takes a click.
Which I kind of use as an indicator.
Yep, can't do it any other time.
I always try and get as much information as I can during a game, other than like what cards he plays. I try and see how he uses his deck. So criminals and anarchs you'll see running a lot to try and res ice, be it for parasites or in the last game you saw a Shaper run a lot to parasite and ice destruction. Criminals try and see where they can poke and prod and make money, because that's how they make money by running. So if they don't do that, they're not usually doing that well, or if they can't run, they're not making money. So it usually goes one way or the other. So immediately installing and using the self-modifying code, which is another odd play. He's not trying to face check, and he does this. He gets the data sucker before a run ever starts, and he doesn't pressure. He doesn't use it to pressure the. Oh, okay. So dirty laundries the archives with the data sucker. That makes a little bit more sense, but he still could have dirty laundried one of the centrals. And if I didn't res SMC the data sucker,
that's true. That would have made this a big problem.
Which is kind of a different play. This isn't standard. Definitely it's not standard, and I can tell that right off the bat. But the data sucker counters, it either looks like he's playing parasite recursion, like the Kate I played a little while ago, or maybe he's doing something else that's funky. He is Exile, so that's not normal. And there is that Exile pawn combo with Deep Red, where you install pawn on Scheherazade and you get a credit for it, and pawn's free, so it doesn't cost anything. And then with Deep Red in play, you immediately put pawn on one of those centrals. And then whenever you make a successful run, you put the pawn in archives, or put the pawn in your heap, get another pawn that goes on Scheherazade, gets you another credit for free, and then it goes back onto a central. And it's just this credit and money, or it's credit and draw for Exile, because whenever he plays a card from his heap, he gets to draw a card. So I've seen that type of combo before. Okay, but test running the Overmind, this kind of shows me what he's trying to do. So now I know I can expect scavenges to scavenge back the Overmind, and it also refills those counters. And Wraparound here is just such a good counter to Overmind. He has to pay 7 to get through because there's no Fractor out. So this cheap little 2-cost ice is going to make him pay a lot of his money to try and get down. Even with those 2 data sucker tokens, it's still 5-6 to get through the wraparound for 2-cost ice. And he had to test run the Overmind out, so that's just going to go back to the top of his deck. And he sees the Sand. So that one run and one play where he test running the Overmind and making that run made him poor. Now, granted, I can't use that Sand anymore because he trashed it, but I have a Jackson in play. So it can just go right back in the deck, and I really don't mind him trashing for the amount of money that he had to pay to get in and trash the one card. And now that I know that it's an Overmind deck, or at least I have that strong impression that it's an Overmind deck because he had to test run it, I'm just installing another ice over top of that wraparound, and I'm going to take advantage of this window here. Because there's no way he could really get in unless he had a inside job, and it doesn't seem to be the MO so far. And yeah, just scoring out the Astra script, and that window was something I really needed to take advantage of. That was a pretty good job reading his play and reading what he was going to do there. So he draws up, and you can see in his hand he does have that Parasite. So maybe he does play a little bit of Recursion. And what else is that? Is that a Chicana in his hand? I can't quite make that up. That would be a pretty cool play. I don't remember if it actually hit the table, but so same old thing, and you can see discarding that pawn. So that's another one of those parts of the combo that I was mentioning. You do need 2 pawns, one in archives and one in the heap and one in play, in order to get that Scheherazade deep red combo going. And I haven't seen any other Kaesa, so otherwise pawn is pretty worthless if you don't play other Kaesa, because that's what it fetches. So that must be what he's running with some other Anarch splashes just to round it out. And I'm thinking here, I still don't think there's much of a window for him to get to me. He needs, with the Overmind, he still needs 8 credits to get through the wraparound, and that's not even counting or I guess he only needs 7 because you don't actually pay money to get through. You just use one of the counters. But that plus whatever's in front of it makes it pretty unlikely. But the other option is I just dumped a Sand there and want him to try and waste his time and see if he has any tricks. Oh, and you can see the 2 R&D interfaces that are in his hand in the E3. So the E3 even more signaling that is even more of a signal to me that he uses Overmind as his primary breaker, because the E3 saves the counters on the Overmind so you don't have to scavenge it as often. So against Eli or Ichi or any other like multi-subroutine piece of ice, he could use 1 counter, and now that he broke a subroutine, he can just pay 1 credit instead of using another counter. So what I did was have the breaking news there, so I wanted, if he used a trick, it would have benefited him a little bit, but the upside of that risk is now I can trash something. And originally I was going to do the daily cast, but there was only 4 credits left on it. So I'm trying to think what would be better, that same old thing or the daily cast. And I end up with the same old thing, and I've seen a couple test runs, or at least 1 test run, along with a levy and some other economy cards. So he does have the pile of money, and I think in hindsight that was the right play. I don't think that daily cast would have helped too much otherwise. And okay, so he modded the R&D interface and plays a Scheherazade. And just kind of playing into what I thought was going to happen here with the Scheherazade pawn combo. I'm sure at this point he has another pawn in his hand and is looking to get that rolling as quickly as he can. So he's going to start making money and accelerating his draw very, very soon. unless I can stop and kind of protect all of my servers and all my centrals in particular, because pawn. Well, no, pawn doesn't need. I can't remember if pawn needs to go on a central or not, but even still, it'd be good to start worrying about that, especially since he's starting to get his multi-access going. And multi-access against a small deck is scary. It's really, really easy to start just pulling multiple agendas every single turn. Plus, it makes in doing that, it's making the likelihood that I can draw into another Astro very slim. So interesting that he discards the Scavenge here. That's usually a card you see Exile hang on to, because it not only replaces itself with his ability, but it also would let him refresh his Overmind. And I discarded the same old thing, so he can't even same old thing as Scavenge to trigger that off. And meanwhile, I just score out another Astro Script, and I think I top decked that, if I remember correctly. But still, now at this point I'm sitting at 5 points and with an Astro token, and he's just starting to get his engine going. So this Exile deck is not for... It's had a bad matchup. You know, it's... Okay, and here you can see the deep red combo going. So he played the pawn on the Scheherazade, which gets him a credit for the Scheherazade. And pawn was errated, so you can play it off of another ice onto something else. It's the only Kaisa that works this way. So he plays it on deep red. Then deep red's ability triggers, and its click ability sends it over to R&D. He makes a run on R&D where he's going to get a successful run. So he gets the data sucker counter, the pawn goes back to his discard pile, he gets another pawn out of his heap, plays on Scheherazade, gets a credit, then the deep red ability triggers again, swings back over to R&D, which he's going to run on again. And so it's going to trigger again. He's going to get another credit out of this and another card draw because of the Exile. And as interesting as that combo is, it's actually kind of effective. One of the, or at least the first poster on Reddit, was one of the players that plays at the store that I also play at. So I'd seen it before, and I kind of expected it, even though it was a wonky kind of combo. But I had played against it before, and had some idea of that.
Better than nothing.
And he pulls the breaking news out of my hand. But yeah, so that was a BL that I had installed a little while ago, and when I had top decked the Astro Script.
Did you have another one in your hand? No.
NAPD.
And we're just talking about if I had any other agendas in my hand, and it was just an NAPD.
More worried about being in your hand.
So good on him for doing so well with Exile, but unfortunately it's just not fast enough to handle a rush fast advance with the world is yours. So. The next game is just as interesting. It has a really cool outcome. So I encourage you to check that out. Thanks for watching.